I'd also like to begin by acknowledging the various traditional owners of the land on which we are all meeting. For me in Perth, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders past and present. It's great to see some familiar names logged in, and thank you everyone who has logged into the webinar this morning on Wear It Purple Day, a day focused on showing Lgbti plus young people that they have the right to be proud of who they are. Wear It Purple's 2020 theme envisions the importance of encouragement, empowerment and emphasis on making effective change for Lgbti individuals and all minority groups, which is linked to the discussion we'll be having. For those that don't know me, my name is Moko Nkarbo and I manage our HR division at Page Group in Perth. I've been with Page Group coming up 5 years now, and throughout my time here, I've seen the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace, not only from an internal perspective at Page, but also the various recruitment processes I've supported and the diverse candidates and clients that I've actually worked with as well. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I believe that there's always more that we can be doing to drive diversity and inclusion. And as you all know, Pride is the focus of this webinar. I'm excited to partner with Pride professionals, having been completely inspired by some of the stories of the lives that were changed by the program and the support that they provide to the Lgbti community. Today we have Stephanie Graskowski, who uses the pronouns she and her, and co-founder of Pride Professionals, who run through the current challenges in the Lgbti community from a workplace perspective and introduce Pride Professionals and the background to the program. We're also really lucky to have two Pride Professional mentors, Sam Radilak, Head of People and Culture at IGO, pronouns she and her, and Conrad Liberis, Executive Officer at the Piddington Society and Board Director of WA AIDS Council, pronouns he and him, who are here to share their stories as a Pride mentor. To start off with, I'd like to introduce Rani Nandan, pronouns she and her, who is the HR Director for Page Australia, and to share our journey in driving diversity and inclusion at Page, and more specifically the background to our Pride at Page program. Before I pass you on to Rani, I'd like to also highlight that we do have half an hour dedicated to answering any questions, so I really encourage everyone to send through questions throughout the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer each of them. Now, Rani, over to you.
Thank you so much, Moko. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet today. And for me, that is the Bidjigal peoples. I'm really excited to join you all today and to participate in what I see as an important discussion on inclusion on the 10th anniversary or 10th celebration of Wear It Purple Day. Here at Page Group, we really see diversity and inclusion as a central part of our employee value proposition, and we have a number of diversity streams covering parents, gender, ability, ethnicity and pride. Increasingly, we are more focused on intersectionality. We first launched our internal network called Pride at Page in 2017, and it's a global program that supports our LGBTI employees in bringing their whole self to work. But at the same time, it's about driving inclusive behaviours and awareness across the entire business. We now have a growing internal network of allies and role models. What we did was we took both a bottom-up and a top-down approach to LGBTI inclusion. We quickly secured a senior executive sponsor and we arranged training for our senior executives on LGBTI inclusion and awareness. But at the same time, we empowered employees to demonstrate their allyship and advocacy at the office level. Internally, we've really placed a focus on policy reviews to ensure that they are explicitly inclusive. We've rolled out unconscious bias training and specific inclusive recruitment focused workshops. Further, we've seen success in more visible signs of inclusivity with simple things such as lanyards, pins, posters, flags, and signage in each of our offices. While we still have plenty to do, we are already seeing positive momentum. We're actually the first recruiter to become a member of Pride and Diversity, and I can't speak more highly of the support that they've provided to us over the last couple of years. We're listed on the Inclusive Employers website, and in 2019, we were awarded Diversity and Inclusion Champion by Recruitment International. For those who are just starting out in this space or are looking for ways to become more inclusive from a Pride perspective, I can highly recommend the AWEI or the Australian Workplace Equality Index as a great place to start in benchmarking yourselves against best practice. Each year, we use our results to build a detailed strategy and action plan. The action plan covers everything from training and awareness programs to policy reviews, partnerships and support for organisations such as Minus 18, Wear It Purple, Pride Professionals, and participation in events such as the Sydney Mardi Gras, Perth Pride Parade, Pride Month activities, Ida Hobbit and other days of significance. We recently achieved gold status for our efforts and progress within the AWEI. For us as a recruiter, we're really in a unique position to impact the experience of our employees, but also having a positive impact on the lives of so many of our clients and candidates. We continue to look for ways to make our recruitment processes more inclusive and also to partner with our clients who are looking to drive diversity and inclusion in their own businesses. Earlier this year, our Perth office decided to be a sponsor of Pride Professionals to help raise awareness and to break down barriers for the LGBTI community. I'll now hand over to Stephanie and we can hear her talk about some of the challenges experienced by the LGBTI community in the workplace, as well as providing an overview of the Pride Professionals program.
Awesome, thanks heaps, Rani. Yeah, I'll talk about Pride Professionals. Look, it started last year and it was a very humble beginnings. I had a conversation with my partner at the dinner table where, I was trying to figure out how do we help people who, identify as LGBT plus, feel more included in the workplace and not have to stress about, continually coming out and all those sort of things, the sort of stuff where I, struggled in the workplace. So I wanted to create some sort of forum. And I guess the idea came from this program, Women in Mining WA, which some people might know of. I joined that as a graduate, and the amount of support and the networking that kind of brought me, I kind of thought, why can't we have that for people who identify, because that would be an awesome forum. And my partner Tanya, who is my co-founder, she's a doer, and she just said, you know what, let's do it. Let's just make it happen. And within a couple months, we just rounded up, really supportive people, a lot of people from the Women in Mining program as well, who were just keen to help. So, Fast Track, that was nearly 2 years ago in 2019. We've had a really successful program in 2019 and then in 2020 this year as well, albeit very different this year because of COVID, but the main aims that are there are to connect people with one another, to share stories and to build relationships and provide that network. So yeah, we've just had an awesome 2 years with the program, and we're so just happy to be affiliated with really good organisations, to have awesome people coming on board to support the program as well, that being mentees, mentors. We're now creating buddies because we just want to keep people connected. And yeah, just hearing, from people who've never really understood or thought about the challenges that people might have to go through in the workplace if they are, gay or a lesbian or bi or trans, just hearing some people go, wow, never thought of that. And now that I know it, how do I help? And so that's the biggest thing for us, is people just, once they become aware of the challenges, they're more than willing to help, which is awesome. So that, whether they're straight or gay or whatever, people just want to help others not have those challenges in the workplace. So I guess, if we talk about what are those challenges, every time you're in a new environment, your sexuality and sometimes your gender identity, they're not visible things. So you always feel in a new place, oh crap, I've got to now come out to everyone. And now when I start to talk about my family life or my partner, am I safe in this situation to be talking about that? And that's, always a thought that crosses your mind is, am I going to be rejected by these new people who I don't even know, because suddenly I'm going to tell them, that I've got a female partner, and they're going to go, whoa, hold on. Now that I don't like this person, I'm not going to talk to them. So I guess, yeah, that being an invisible sort of thing that you don't know about people. That's one of the challenges. And I guess, yeah, the biggest things are that awareness piece. So helping people understand those challenges, that's number one. And then once people do understand, just the smallest of things can help, whether that is the rainbow lanyard or your wording of things. So rather than assuming someone that's male is going to have a female partner and asking them about their wife or their girlfriend, having that gender neutral language as well really helps. So there's all these little things, subtle things that people can do that really help, like people's little decisions in their head as to whether they're going to say, oh, I don't feel safe actually saying that I have a female partner, so I'm just going to lie, or I'm just going to deviate completely from any personal conversations. And that's hard when you're trying to team with people and you're trying to learn more about someone. Personal life's a huge thing. So if someone's hiding that, you said before me, that it's all about bringing your whole self to work. This day and age, work is a lot more than just using your arms and legs. It's all about using your brain, really, because we're moving towards that. And if your brain is under duress and in anxiety because you're worrying about, oh crap, are they going to know whether I've got a partner of a certain sex or what have you, then you're not really going to be focusing on your job. So I guess the whole, in a nutshell, the program is really just to drive, a group of people that come together in a professional sense. And that could be, it doesn't have to be a white collar, it could be blue collar, whatever, to come together and have a support network and share stories of how people have overcome challenges, and for people to know that they're supported by, this group of people who identify as whatever, whether it's heterosexual or what, like these people accept you, and we just want to help create better inclusive workforces. So yeah, that's all from me. I'll pass over now to the lovely Sam. She's going to tell us about how awesome it is to be a mentor.
Okay, thanks, Steph. I hope everybody can hear me. I like to think that I'm perhaps one of the people that Steph didn't round up. And I think I remember seeing this program and thinking that, of course, it's absolutely, of course, something that you do. And I don't know, it's just this really strong kind of feeling that I should do it. As I got into the program, and certainly one of the very first events that I went to, I just remember being absolutely moved to tears by a story that was told at that event. And it was Friday night, and I just remember standing there thinking, this is ridiculous in 2019. Not ridiculous that this person feels like this, but ridiculous that this person is not supported in the workplace. In fact, this person is not supported in the community. And, I thought, all right, yeah, absolutely. I was already on board, but I thought, yeah, absolutely. This is the thing I need to talk. And I thought about it, I got into mining sort of 10, 12 years ago. And I'm not a geologist and not a met or a mining engineer. Kind of feel, for the first few years, felt like a blow-in because I was not mining based, not male, and also a mother who had kids and was trying to blend that whole thing together, which is always a bit of schmozzle. But I got into mining and I got in and I found women in mining, and I thought, right, I'm going to join that group. I thought it feels like kind of the right thing to do. It feels like there's some support there. And what I found was this fantastic community of people who just, even though I was kind of all the things that are not mining, welcomed me with open arms. And I think I met Steph a very long time ago, not long after she graduated, and thought, I think it sells yourself short, Steph, to think that Tam is the doer. You were quite obviously the doer at that point too. So joined Women in Mining and then met Steph through this, and that's how when the program came up, I thought, yeah, absolutely, something for me to do. And since then, I have had two absolutely fantastic mentees who are just such impressive young people. And they are impressive professional people. One working in mining, we're both working in mining, but doing quite different roles. And have been absolutely amazed at, I guess, the story that Steph tells in terms of about being your whole self. I kind of understand it from the point of view of, although the rest of my life is ordinary and boring, being a woman in mining, you can't really be you a lot of the time, simply because, you can't be daggy you, you've got to be kind of professional, female you. And so I understand in a small, tiny way the crossover. But it also came at a time when we were actually launching at IGO a mentoring program internally. And I saw the profound difference that just meeting people in our organisation with other people who they didn't know in different disciplines really made the connection. And I thought, there's a lot about mentoring, there's a lot about sponsorship, and I kind of thought, there's a thing in this. We need to, when we are people with some experience, we need to do this for other people. Nobody's going to do this if not for us. And we've been very specific at IGO in terms of building our culture, designing our culture, what we want it to be. And to me, being a Pride Professionals mentor meant, being one of the senior people in this organisation that just has committed to doing something that's obvious, and an obvious support for a group of people who, I guess, in 2019 I wouldn't have thought were in that spot. The other thing that struck me through 2019 is, support for the pride at work. This is everybody. These are the people that this is our world. These are our parents. These are our children. These are our brothers and sisters. Who you love shouldn't have any bearing on what happens at work. And I just am astonished, and I have been astonished through this journey about how this could still be so in 2020. So any support that I can give to Pride Professionals, to mentoring more broadly, didn't require me to be rounded up. And I think, when I look at how we can encourage people and what I can now do to drive that, I just feel absolutely it's my responsibility. So mine is an ordinary story, but I think I've got enough experience now, I hope, that I can help others and support others. So that's kind of my story. That's the reason why I have been so delighted to be a part of it. From here, I think we'll turn over to Conrad and hear perhaps a different, similar perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, hey everyone. I was rounded up, and I'm okay with that. I'm just one of the cattle. And so, it's always kind of struck me that in Western Australia specifically, we like focusing on issues, and we kind of do it for a really long time. You can look at Indigenous issues, you can look at gender equality and stuff like that. We spend years looking at things, and we want to do one particular thing. But so LGBTI stuff has kind of been moved to, hasn't always been there. It hasn't always been on the radar. That's obviously really concerning for a few things, but I think it's also, part of it is because there was no fora for anything to kind of occur. There were lots of pockets of things going on. And that was one of the things about Pride Professionals that really engaged me, is that this was actually something. And also, Steph and Tanya are just cool people who wanted to get it done, and they were like, let's not reinvent the wheel. We know what works, and we know how we can actually get something done, and it does work. I've got a mentor at the moment who is much smarter than me. It's very unfortunate, but it's one of those things where mentoring is, sorry, I'm literally next to a construction site. It's awful. If you can hear the jackhammer. I think it's one of those things that mentoring gets thrown around a lot, and for a lot of people, they throw it around as the solution to everyone's problems. The thing for me about this mentoring program has always been that it's over a long period of time. There are prompts and nudges from Steph and Tanya and the gang to kind of keep going, to focus on different things. I know the thing that's worked well for me this year is having a project to work on, to have something that we're constantly talking about that uses my knowledge, being able to kind of help with the development of that. And then also just to say, here is my network. I don't mind who you talk to. I'm happy to introduce you to anyone. And I think that's kind of what all of this is about. If we're going to actually create real progress in workplaces, the big thing that has always supported me is actually having people around me to kind of say, to go to for advice, and to say, this is a good idea or this isn't. I talk about the idea of not having a support network, but having a war cabinet. The people who you can go to for frank and fearless advice. I was raised in the public service, and so, you know, frank and fearless advice is hopefully what public service gives. And I really value that in the people around me. And so being able to say, no, that's a terrible idea, or you shouldn't do that, or that's going to go badly, or more importantly, the ones that I do prefer, which is, that's a great idea, Conrad, go ahead, is really important, because I think, you know, these issues compound on each other. Is that when you start doing one thing, it kind of keeps going, and that's when real change occurs. It doesn't happen instantly. That's the thing about this program that has always stood out to me, is that it's not one-off, it's not a single event and stuff like that, but it's part of a bigger group of people that brings them all together, and you learn from each other, and you're supporting each other on and on and on. And, you know, and literally, I don't even see it as anything difficult. Not because I find it easy, but because I'm just like, yeah, of course, I'd go do that. Like, I'll go have, like, me and my mentee, we do our meetings over lunch. It's wonderful. And so, which I highly encourage, by the way. And so, you know, it's things like that, you know, that's a very engaging way to do it. And it is, you know, you actually get to learn about that person. They get to learn about you, but you know, these things are always back and forth. I'm not the oracle of all wisdom, to my shock. But you know, it is always a back and forth, and that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So that's where I'll leave that for the time being.
Awesome. Thank you, Conrad. And thanks everyone for sharing. It's amazing to hear the impact of the program, you know, just to the mentors and the mentees really, and everyone who's impacted by that. It's great to see a couple of questions come through as well, and I'm excited to run through all of that. Before we go into this, I'd like to quickly share a poll for everyone to answer. Just given the current climate, we want to collect data on the market. So sharing this information will give us this insight. John, if you could share that, thank you. In the meantime, while you're selecting your answer, we've got a question here. So we've got a couple of people who are actually interested in being a mentee and want to be connected to a Pride mentor or someone from Pride Professionals. Steph, can you, I guess, run through a little bit around how they can get involved?
Sure can. I'm happy to send out after this links and all that sort of stuff, and emails, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with us. 2019 program is winding down this month, but then we're obviously preparing for next year, for 2021, hopefully post COVID, so we can actually get some in-person networking, because I think everyone's been missing that. But yeah, we're just trying to plan out now how we can grow. We had some awesome news today that we've partnered with the Australian Institute of Mining and Metals, so the AusIMM, as people might know. Obviously, I'm in resources. I've got my purple shirt under here as well, just so people know. But yeah, things like that where we can start to, utilise industry groups that help us, I guess, spread the message that we exist and about the program. That stuff helps. So yeah, if you, after this, we can send out links. We've got a, brain's like eluding me. We've got a web page, we've got Facebook, we've got LinkedIn, we've got all those things. So yeah, it's very easy for people to get in touch and find out more.
Perfect, thank you. Another question that we have, how do you get around funding for LGBT plus initiatives during this time where budgets and D&I have been cut? Or do you believe funding plays an important role in D&I activities for staff? Rani, did you want to answer this from a HR perspective?
Sure. I think excellent question, and one that I think plenty of people will have as a challenge at the moment. I think now more than ever we have to be creative, and the key to success for anything at this point is having passionate people involved, and passionate people will come up with creative ideas. I know throughout this period in our own organisation, we had a lot going on for Pride Month, and we have a lot going on today for Wear It Purple, none of which required any cost. So I think inclusion activities are about getting people involved and about telling stories and about improving awareness, and we can do all of that without spending money.
Perfect. Conrad, did you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, there are two things that kind of go through my mind, and this is something that I've worked on with my mentee, which is that we obviously started talking as budgets were being slimmed down, and so the big thing that we really focused on was about how can we actually do something internally in their organisation which was originally zero budget, which was actively very small, and just getting a small group of people together and grow it from there. Originally they were thinking, let's get lots of cash and go for it that way, which is always delightful, but it's just not always the reality, unfortunately. And so start small and grow it from there. And that literally might be, let's get 5 people and go that way and just show that there's interest within the organisation. The other thing that I would like to say is that the organisation that I work for are on a non-profit called the Piddington Society, and we do a lot of professional development sort of stuff for lawyers and stuff like that. One thing that I know I've got in my arsenal is that when we run these events, there are ways to insert the diversity and inclusion conversation, B, to elevate the voices of different people, from people from diverse backgrounds, and showing off their expertise, which is the big thing that I'm passionate about. But also C, running these specific events, we're governed by regulators, and so we get to always play to that game. But there are those opportunities just to kind of insert these things in within existing operations. So I think Rani is right. Think creatively, but think to what you've already got as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with Conrad as well. I think for us, it's, we've been very, as I said, we've been very specific about our whole culturing program, of which, diversity and inclusion has been a subset. So, it is work with what you've got, and kind of morph that over time so that you actually expand in areas that you need to. I think it's incrementally very easy for people to understand that it's on the journey because of other programs of work, and this is not a program of work, but other contexts that they have had previously. And for us, I felt very fortunate in terms of we've run a big culturing program, and to actually kind of expand that or deepen that depending on what we want to do is actually much easier than saying, okay, here now, with bells and whistles, we're going to do X, Y, or Z. It just makes sense to have it in context, I think. So therefore it's not necessarily an additional spend, it is just part of what you're spending.
And Sam, while I've got you, given that you are a mentor, Pride mentor, has that had any sort of positive impact on your learnings as a HR professional yourself as well?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, you learn stuff all the time, and I think, quite selfishly, I learned lots of stuff from my 20s, stuff being a technical word, obviously. But I think I guess personally, I've learned about what they do. I've learned about how they feel. I've learned about context within a workplace. But for the whole mentor experience, certainly I think I doubled my effort, and I think it's very much reflected in the program that we're running for this year, which is all about inclusion. So we will do in FY21, we will have much greater focus in this organisation on inclusion, as opposed to just that kind of net sum game of diversity, which I think people get very focused on numbers. But I think from a range of experiences that I had in 2019 and 2020, and not this either in that the whole COVID matter, I think it has been profound. And if you could know how many times I have bashed other people's ears about, the requirement for this kind of a program in organisations, in the workplace, in professional life, you should be a mentor, we should do this. I think you would be perhaps surprised for somebody my age at this point in life. I'm thinking, no, I've got to stand on a soapbox. Nobody else is.
Great, thanks so much for sharing. Got another question here. How far in your career is the perfect time to be a mentor? We've got a couple of people who actually are interested in being a mentor, but we're not really sure when is the right time. Steph, can you share, I guess, your insight there?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I would say if someone feels like they have something to share with someone, or they can be a support to someone, that's probably the point when they know they can be a mentor. Like, I don't want it to be you have to do 10 years in the industry to be a mentor. Like, I don't work like that. I think and there's also this element of reverse mentoring, right? So, if you have something to give, or you want to be a support person to someone, that's the biggest thing. I mean, Conrad can probably speak to this point where we actually partnered him up with his, we said mentee, but it was almost like a peer-to-peer sort of relationship where Tanya and I kind of thought, well, these two would be an awesome match just for people to know each other. And that, it didn't matter what level of professional, they were at in years or what have you. It was just an awesome partnering. So if you've got something to give, that's what we want.
Yeah, definitely just on that. So my mentee has been working for a bit longer than me. She's a little bit older than me, and it's a really fascinating thing. But the beauty of what works is that we have complementary knowledge, and that's kind of what it's about. Is that we've got something that we can learn from each other, but principally we're trying to work on things for her. But that's kind of the beauty of it, is that I always believe in the whole idea of lifelong learning, and that we're always learning from each other, and that all of that sort of stuff. And so it is kind of one of those things that I think it is kind of one of those things that anyone can be a mentor. It's just thinking about the contribution that we're making, and that's a really important one there. So keep that in mind, is that you learn from everyone. I spent 18 months living with my grandparents who were in their 80s and late 80s. And I was learning from them every day, as much as I'm now learning from someone who we just hired here, who's 23. And so these things happen wherever. It depends on what you're focused on.
Great. And while I've got you, Conrad, do you have any tips on building a culture around the mentoring side of things and making it sustainable? Often we find that it can start out really well, but then can fizzle out over time, and the turnover of staff, if it is from an internal perspective as well. Any suggestions there?
Yeah. So the big thing, so I'm horrendous with my diary, as the other panelists will know. I had to cancel a meeting. I cancelled my attendance at a meeting last week, just because I'm just terribly organised on these things, which says a little bit too much about me. And so the big thing that I would say, just on the most practical thing, is set a reminder in your phone, in your calendar, to actually reach out at certain points. I've got it for every 2 weeks, just to say, hey, what's going on? Not that necessarily anything needs to be going on. You can, like, you know, sometimes conversations are short, sometimes they're long and stuff like that. But principally, over the long term, it is actually about getting to know that person and understanding what's going on and how you can actually contribute to one another's life. And when you actually know someone, you can do something. And when you understand what's going on, the biggest thing I would say is, for me, I know I need to have a good laugh with someone. I try not to take myself terribly seriously. And so if we're going to have a good laugh, it's a winner. Figure out what you need in your relationships for them to be good. Think about literally why you hang out with your friends that you work with, or even your friends generally. Why are the people that you hang out at work with the people that you hang out with? Like, you know, and that's how you're going to build a good relationship, and a long-term meaningful one as well.
I might add to that, Mo, and I think it's okay also if a mentoring relationship does fizzle out. Sometimes there is a time and a place for mentoring, and two people are in a position where they're able to bounce ideas around, challenge each other's thought processes, and then they need to move on and find other people to challenge them. So I think it's okay to acknowledge that not all mentoring relationships will last forever. I know for myself, I had a mentor in my career very early on. The formal part of the mentoring was for 6 months. We continued to probably stay in contact for 3 years. But I know that even if I reached out to that mentor now, that we would be able to pick up where we left off.
Great. And another question for you, Rani, while I've got you. Global pandemic aside, do you have any aspirational pride goals for your staff and organisation that you can share?
So we put our pride goals very much aligned to the AWEI. So we're hoping to be able to maintain our gold status, which is very tricky. It means that we need to raise the bar on what we've already done. So a lot of our efforts in the past have been on the lesbian and gay sides of parts of inclusion. I think for us as an organisation now, it's about really focusing on the transgender side of things and the queer and gender diverse side of things. I think especially as a recruitment agency, we have a lot to do and a lot to influence in that space.
Great, thank you for sharing. Another question that's come through, if you could share any advice about coming out in the workplace, what would that be? Steph, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure thing. Look, I'd say from personal experience, I always assess, you know, the environment and whether it's a safe place for me to come out. Yeah, like that's just how I deal with it. I mean, other people might deal with it differently. I think first and foremost, you know, you need to put yourself first. And if you don't want to feel like, the reality is, like, there will be times where someone, regardless of your gender, sexuality, whatever, someone might just not like you for whatever reason. So if you don't feel comfortable with that situation, then you protect yourself. Like I always kind of, if someone had a rainbow pin, or if they used, you know, the gender neutral language, or were just like, I don't know, I felt comfortable with them, then it would be no issue. But yeah, when you kind of pick up things, you know, I think they're called schemas. I don't know. Someone said this thing where you pick up words, right? And you start to suss out whether this person or group is, you know, going to be welcoming or going to be not welcoming. So pretty quickly you discern from an environment whether it's a place you want to come out or not. And that sucks. Like, you don't want to always be having that situation happen. So yeah, the best advice I'd give to someone is definitely put yourself first, and if it's not safe, then yeah, like, you know, don't put it out there. But if you do feel safe to, then by all means do it, and always have like a plan in your head of what to say, because if you do get that question, oh, have you got a boyfriend, then you can be like, no, I have a girlfriend, and then you can just be like, that's what it is, you know, like, so if you kind of prepare yourself quickly for that split second decision, then it helps a lot. Yeah.
Right. And do you have any, I guess, recommendations or suggestions on how allies can be really, I guess, vocal or just show their support? And you mentioned obviously the lanyards and the pins, but what other suggestions do you have, Steph?
Yeah, sure. Look, like I said before, trying to use gender neutral language, and that helps with a lot of things, you know, and whether it's with gender diversity and that sort of stuff too. You know, like just the kind of things like sharing, becoming aware of, you know, the days of significance, like today being Wear It Purple Day, trying to have a bit of self-education, and that is hard because sometimes people don't know, you know, saying you don't know what you don't know, right? So there's a bit of a responsibility on each of us that want to champion this cause and want to help, is to spread that message, you know. And when it is Wear It Purple Day, wear purple and say, I'm wearing purple because of this reason, or keep sharing it and keep trying to help people understand. Again, storytelling is a great one. You know, 2 years ago on Wear It Purple Day, I shared my personal story at a morning tea. And it, you know, it was a pretty sad story, and people were crying, I was crying, everyone was crying, and people remembered. 2 years on, I'd have people bump into me and be like, I remember your story, and that really like resonated with me. So yeah, when you start to help people understand what it means, then they get it, and then they just want to help. So just continually talking about it. Yeah, if anyone else has got any points, it'd be good to hear.
Yeah. I was just thinking about when I came to terms with my sexuality, I was working for that bastion of inclusion, the Catholic Church. And so, and I wasn't even a religious person anyway. What a time! And so it was a really fascinating thing, and it really was in my mind about how do I go about doing this. I'd just come out to my brothers and my parents, and did this need to be an issue at work? And the reality of the situation for me was that what I came to understand then, and I've successively understood later in my career when I was doing more advisory and consulting work around the diversity issue, is that most people actually don't care that much, and they're not going to create an issue about it. What I've realized that most people is that they're curious, because a lot of people don't know that many LGBTI people, so they just got a couple of questions. And that curiosity I actually like. Not everyone does, but it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, yeah, okay, let's have a chat. Or, you know, the main one is, have you always known? And it's just like, yeah, not really. Like, I've just kind of figured it out, especially when I was like 21. And so it was, and that's kind of part of it as well. And so you kind of got to reconcile both with yourself and your family and things like that, and then also other parts of it. And so, but at core, most people are just curious, they're just interested, and it comes from a place of good nature rather than it being, you know, anything malicious. So yeah, that's what I would say there.
Right.
Can I just jump in quickly too? I think it's about finding the people that care for you. And you know, this came to me many years ago when one of my very dear friends from uni came out to my husband. And it was one of those funny moments for Tim, my husband, because he thought, well, yeah, I've kind of always known that about you, but it had always been unspoken. And it's we were both quite taken by the fact that we cared for him, and we saw him for him, and always had. But to have to actually do this obviously with your family and friends, and then kind of more specifically with the people that you work with, if you can't find those people that care for you to do that, I think that's really tough. So, for the people that care, anything that we can do to go, yeah, I totally see you, I think is a really important thing. So it goes both ways. I think in a workplace, I think it's about you choosing to share it, but it's about the people that are being shared with to care for the person and see the person.
Can't agree with everything more. The only other thing that I would add at this point, as an ally, I think it's really important to be confident in speaking up when something isn't inclusive. And that doesn't mean slapping people on the wrist. It means, hey, I'm not sure if you've thought about what you just said or how you just acted, but this is how it might have been received or perceived by somebody else. And I think you can be much more inclusive by doing it X, Y, Z.
I might just jump in quickly and add to some of those points as well. I think one thing I've found quite difficult, I've found it in the past, but not now, is it's a lot easier when you actually have a partner, I found, because if you're single and you really kind of find it hard to be like, well, I'm gay, because it's not really relevant. But when you have a partner, you go, yeah, I have a partner and they're same sex as me, so therefore I'm a lesbian. So it's kind of hard when you are single, and if people kind of have this expectation. And like you said, Conrad, when you're 21 and you're figuring things out and you're like, okay, now I've figured out that I'm gay. And if people know you from the past and they're like, well, you weren't gay then, but you're gay now. I don't get it. So there's all these weird things that happen where you're like, oh crap, I know this person from when I was a teenager. I wasn't gay then, now I'm gay. Now I gotta explain what's happened, and it just kind of becomes a bit awkward. And yeah,
that's why it gets that whole phrase, it gets better, is so true, because now there are people who have never known me since before that time, before I came to terms with my sexuality. So it's so much easier, because it's just they have no comprehension of it. And some of them are my closest friends now. And that's kind of the interesting part to it. If anything, a lot of coming out for me was actually the expectations of what I thought other people were going to say. And both at work and in my personal life and stuff like that. But it's kind of one of those things that I kept on going to, oh great, there's going to be a nuclear bomb go off. When in reality, I remember telling my parents, and my dad is one of the most nonchalant people ever. And he said, oh yeah, cool. Who cares? And it was just the most relaxed response to it ever. And he was like, yeah, cool, you're still my son, whatever. There was no questions. It was just so fine. And like I was saying before, most people are kind of like that. Most people don't have huge issues with it. So yeah.
Sorry, I'll just share another story on that, Conrad. And you're kind of, I'll say yours, a generalist thing. Your fear of how people are going to react, I think, generally comes from your own experience. So, I mean, my mum is just not accepting whatsoever. So she kind of pulled it out of me. I didn't even want to tell her willingly, because she's just so she's just so homophobic. It's not funny. So, telling her was traumatic, and it was it's your fault if you want to stuff up your life. That was kind of her response to me. And then she's like, oh, your dad's going to kill you when he finds out. So I never told my dad until probably 2 years later, when it was just tearing me up inside. And I told him, And, you know, I'm crying. My dad is like typical Eastern European bloke, like not man of many words. You know, I'm crying. I'm like, Dad, I've got something to tell you. And he's just like, have you got cancer? I'm like, no, I don't have cancer. Like, it's no. But then I just said I like women. And he's like, who would wear the pants in that relationship? And I'm like, you're not even funny, yet you've cracked a joke about it. And he's just like, I don't care. And, you know, that was so weird for me because I had this fear my dad was going to hate me more than my mum, but my dad didn't care. He just said, you're still my daughter. Like, you know, that doesn't change. So, you know, depending on if you've had rejection by telling, you know, your parents, like, you're never going to want to tell other people because your parents are like up here, and then if they don't accept you, then God, no one will. So, you know, how you've kind of interacted with your family or, you know, your loved ones, that definitely impacts your ability to tell strangers, because who are they to you, you know?
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. It's amazing. I think we've got time for one more question. And Rani, I'll probably give this one to you. Are there any recommended educational material that people have come across or organisations that can visit information sessions?
Given today is Wear It Purple, I would start right there. There are plenty of resources all over the web. But with today being Wear It Purple, I would go straight to the Wear It Purple website, and they have so many resources to enable conversations to take place in the workplace, in schools, in different organisations. So that would be my first port of call for you.
Amazing. All right. Well, I think we're running out of time, so we're going to wrap it up. I'd like to give out a huge thank you to our panelists. I mean, I personally have found this discussion to be extremely insightful and very thought-provoking, as I'm sure it has for others with all the fantastic questions that have come through. It's really great to hear each of your perspectives and just like the pure passion that you all have as well. So I guess with everyone on this webinar today, you know, there's a reason why you're here, and I'm sure you're all focused on building a culture of equality and driving diversity and inclusion. So I have no doubt that there's been some great key takeaways from the session. Thank you everyone for your time, and it's great to see so many of our clients having an invested interest on what we've discussed today, and we all look forward to seeing you soon.